Hello and welcome to Master Your English, the channel dedicated to guiding you step by step toward English fluency. I'm thrilled to have you here today because we're diving into something absolutely essential for mastering English, inputs and outputs. These two elements are the secret sauce to speaking and understanding English with confidence. And in this episode, I'm going to break down exactly how they work and why they're so game-changing. You might be asking yourself, what are inputs and outputs? And how can they help me improve my English? Don't worry, I've got you covered. I'll explain everything in a clear, simple way, whether you're just starting out or you've been learning English for years. This episode will show you how to train your brain to think and communicate in English naturally. Before we jump in, let's take a quick moment to reflect. Think back to how you learned your first language as a kid. Did you start with grammar books or vocabulary lists? Nope. You listened, absorbed, and watched the world around you. You heard your family talk, saw how people interacted, and little by little, you began to understand. Then, one day, you said your first words. That's the magic of input. It fills your mind with language. And when you started speaking, that was output, using what you'd soaked up. Now, picture applying that same natural process to learning English. Imagine if speaking English could feel as effortless as your native language. The exciting news, it can. Today, I'm going to show you how to make that happen. If you've ever felt stuck, maybe you watch English videos, read books, or listen to native speakers, but when it's time to talk, you freeze or feel nervous, this episode is for you. I'm here to help you break through that barrier by mastering the balance of input and output to boost your fluency. This isn't just about learning English to ace a test, it's about using English to connect, express yourself, and communicate with confidence in real life. So, what's in store for today's episode? Here's the roadmap. What is input and why is listening and reading the foundation of language learning? What is output? And how does speaking and writing make you fluent? How to balance input and output so you don't just understand English, but actually use it. Common pitfalls that hold learners back, and how to steer clear of them. Practical, actionable tips you can start using today to skyrocket your English skills. Sounds exciting, right? I promise, by the end of this episode, you'll have a crystal clear plan to learn English in a way that works. Stick with me until the end because you don't want to miss these life-changing strategies. If you're serious about leveling up your English, this episode will be a total game changer. And if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button for Master Your English so you never miss an episode. All right, let's dive into the world of English inputs and outputs. What are English inputs? Before we explore the details of inputs, let's start with a definition from the Cambridge Dictionary. According to the dictionary, input refers to something like energy, information, or resources that's fed into a system to make it work. In the context of language learning, input is the English you take in, primarily through listening and reading. It's the raw material your brain absorbs to understand the language before you start speaking or writing. Example of input in action. Picture a toddler learning their first language. Before they utter a single word, they spend months listening to their parents, observing facial expressions, and hearing words repeated. Over time, their brain gathers enough input, and one day, they say something like milk or play. The same principle applies to learning English as a second language. When you listen to English songs, watch TV shows, or read articles, your brain collects words, phrases, and sentence patterns. Later, when you speak, you naturally pull from this stored knowledge. Real life example. Meet Emma, who wants to boost her English. Every morning, she listens to a 15-minute English podcast and reads a short blog post. At first, she only catches bits and pieces, but after a few weeks, she starts recognizing familiar words and phrases. A few months later, she notices she can follow conversations better and even uses podcast phrases in her own sentences. That's the power of input. It's the first step to fluency. The more English you hear and read, the easier it becomes to think, speak, and write naturally. Why input is the foundation. Think of learning English like building a house. Without bricks, you can't construct walls. Input is your bricks, the essential material for forming sentences and expressing ideas. Many learners struggle because they skip input and focus too much on grammar drills or vocabulary lists. Without hearing or seeing English in real contexts, it's hard to recall words naturally when speaking. The more input you get, the more your brain absorbs, making English feel automatic over time. Types of input. Not all input is created equal. There are two main types, passive and active, and both play a role in your learning. Passive input. Background. Exposure. This happens when you're exposed to English without focusing intensely. Examples include listening to an English podcast while cleaning, watching a movie with subtitles, or playing English music in the background. Passive input helps your brain get comfortable with English sounds and rhythms, even if you're not catching every word. Over time, it makes English feel familiar, but it's not enough on its own for fluency. Active input focused engagement. This is when you concentrate fully on the English you're hearing. Are reading, for example, listening to a podcast and noting new words, watching a video without subtitles to catch sentence patterns, or reading a book and looking up unfamiliar terms. Active input is more powerful because it forces your brain to process English deeply, helping you notice grammar, vocabulary, and structures you can use later. To make the most progress, combine both. Passive input builds familiarity, while active input deepens understanding. Aim to expose yourself to English daily through both methods. Practical examples of input at work. Listening example. Imagine you listen to an English audiobook during your daily commute. At first, you only understand fragments, but after a month, you pick up entire sentences without translating. A few months later, you're answering questions in English more confidently because your brain has absorbed patterns. From listening. Reading example. Suppose you read an English short story every evening. Initially, you rely on a dictionary, but over time, you recognize words and phrases faster. After a few months, you notice your writing improves because you've seen how sentences are built in real contexts. How much input do you need? The more, the better. As a rough guide, 30 minutes of daily listening can lead to noticeable improvement in 3 to 6 months. 15 minutes of daily reading can expand your vocabulary and grammar in a few months. Combining an hour of listening and 30 minutes of reading daily can get you to conversational fluency in about a year. These are estimates, but the takeaway is clear. Consistent input fuels progress. Aim for at least an hour of English exposure daily. Mixing passive and active methods. Input is the foundation of your English journey. Without it, you won't have the tools to speak or write confidently. In the next section, we'll explore English outputs, how to take what you've absorbed and turn it into fluent communication. Stay with me. What are English outputs? Now that we've covered input, let's shift to the second half of the equation, output. According to the Cambridge Dictionary, output is the result of something produced by a person or system. In language learning, output is the English you produce through speaking and writing. It's how you express your thoughts after absorbing input. Without output, you might understand English, but struggle to communicate effectively. Example of output in action. Think of a painter who studies art techniques but never picks up a brush. They might understand art, but they can't create it. Similarly, if you only listen and read English without practicing speaking or writing, you won't be able to use the language fluently. Real-life example. Consider Alex, who watches English documentaries for months. He understands a lot, but gets nervous when speaking. To improve, he starts practicing by talking to himself for 10 minutes daily and writing a short journal entry. At first, he stumbles, but over time, he speaks more confidently and writes clearer sentences. Output is the key to turning knowledge into skills. Why output is essential for fluency. Output is like practicing a sport. You can't get good at basketball by only watching games. You have to shoot hoops. Here's why output matters. Memory boost. Speaking and writing force you to recall words and grammar, strengthening your memory. Confidence builder. The more you practice, the less nervous you feel in real situations. Weakness. Spotter. Output reveals gaps in your knowledge, helping you focus on areas to improve. Natural thinking. Regular speaking and writing train your brain to process ideas in English without translating. Mistakes are normal during output. Don't fear them. They're part of learning. Just like falling while learning to ride a bike. Types of output. Output comes into forms planned and spontaneous, each with unique benefits. Planned output. Prepared communication. This involves preparing before using English, like writing an essay, drafting an email, or rehearsing a presentation. Planned output lets you focus on grammar, vocabulary, and clarity since you have time to think. A great way to practice is keeping a daily English journal, writing a few sentences about your day or plans. Writing a few sentences about your day or plans, spontaneous output in the moment communication. This is using English without preparation, like chatting with a friend, answering a question in class, or ordering food in English. Spontaneous output builds fluency because it forces you to think on your feet. To practice, try talking to yourself in English. Describe what you're doing, like I'm making lunch now, or I need to call my friend. Balancing input and output. Some learners focus too much on input and avoid speaking or writing due to fear of mistakes. Others speak a lot, but don't get enough input, leading to limited vocabulary. A good rule of thumb is 70% input and 30% output. Spend most of your time absorbing English, but practice speaking and writing daily, even for just a few minutes. Use what you learn. If you hear a new phrase in a podcast, try saying it in a conversation or writing it in a journal. Examples of output improving skills. Speaking example, Lisa listens to English podcasts daily but struggles to speak. She starts practicing by describing her day aloud for 10 minutes. After a few months, she's more confident in conversations because she's practiced forming sentences. Writing example, Mark wants better English writing. He writes a short paragraph daily about his experiences and asks a friend to review it. After 3 months, his sentences are clearer, and he recalls grammar rules more easily. Challenge: try speaking for 5 minutes daily in English. Talk to yourself or record your voice. Write 3 to 5 sentences daily in a journal. Small, consistent practice leads to big gains. In the next section, we'll explore how to combine input and output for maximum progress. Keep listening. How to balance input and output effectively. To master English, you need a balance of input and output. Too much listening and reading without speaking or writing can leave you stuck in understanding mode. Too much speaking without enough input can limit your vocabulary and accuracy. Here's how to create a balanced routine with example schedules for different lifestyles and tips for fluency. Creating a daily routine. A strong routine includes both input and output daily, even if time is limited. Here's how to structure it. Start with input. Begin your day with 10 to 15 minutes of listening, e.g., a podcast or reading, e.g., a news article to absorb new language. Output. After input, practice speaking or writing about what you learned. For example, summarize a podcast aloud or write a short paragraph. Mix short and long sessions. Even 5 to 10 minutes of practice is effective if done daily. Longer sessions, 30 to 60 minutes, can deepen learning. Make it fun. Choose topics you enjoy. Listen to music podcasts if you love music, or read travel blogs if you're into exploring. Stay consistent. Daily practice, even briefly, trumps irregular, long study sessions. Example schedules for different learners. Students more time available. Morning input. Listen to an English podcast for 15 minutes while getting ready. Afternoon output. Write a paragraph about a school topic. Evening input. Output. Watch a 30-minute English show and repeat key phrases aloud. Tip. Join a language club for regular speaking practice. Workers' busy schedules. Morning input. Listen to an English audiobook during your commute to minutes. Lunch output. Write a quick email or message in English. Evening input. Output. Watch a short English video and summarize it aloud. Tip. Use English at work if possible, like chatting with colleagues. Busy people, tight schedules. Morning input. Read a short English quote or headline 5 minutes. Daytime input. Output. Think in English during daily tasks, e.g., I'm buying groceries. Closing parenthesis. Evening output. Record a 1-minute voice note about your day. Tip. Use English learning apps during short breaks. Tips for fluency with input and output. Shadowing. Listen to a sentence and repeat it immediately to improve pronunciation and fluency. Speak after reading. Summarize an article aloud to practice forming sentences. Write and speak. Write a short story, then read it aloud to reinforce both skills. 1-to-1 rule. For every 10 minutes of input, spend 10 minutes on output to balance absorption and production. Why consistency matters. Daily practice builds habits and strengthens memory. Compared to learners, Anna practices 15 minutes daily, mixing listening, reading, speaking, and writing. After 3 months, she's more fluent because her brain retains English better. Tom studies 3 hours weekly, but skips days in between. He struggles because he forgets what he learned. Small, daily efforts lead to faster progress than sporadic, intense sessions. Challenge. Create a daily schedule with 10 minutes of speaking or writing. Increase the time gradually and choose fun topics to stay motivated. In the next section, we'll tackle common mistakes that slow progress and how to avoid them. Stay tuned. Common mistakes and how to avoid them. Learning English is a journey with challenges. Many learners make mistakes that hinder progress, often without realizing it. Let's explore these pitfalls and how to overcome them. Mistake 1. Too much input, too little output, or vice versa. Some learners focus only on listening and reading, avoiding speaking or writing due to fear or lack of practice. This leads to understanding English, but struggling to communicate. Others speak a lot, but neglect input, resulting in limited vocabulary and poor grammar. Fix it. Follow the 1-to-1 rule. For every 10 minutes of input, practice 10 minutes of output. Summarize input. After a podcast, talk about it aloud. After reading, write a summary. Use English daily. Try a new phrase in conversation or write it in a sentence. Mistake 2. Over-reliance on passive input. Listening to English in the background, e.g., while cooking is helpful, but not enough for fluency. Passive input builds familiarity, but without active engagement, your brain doesn't process the language deeply. Fix it. Turn passive into active. Repeat phrases from videos aloud or use the shadowing technique. Take notes. Jot down new words from podcasts and use them later. Engage actively. Comment in English on a video or write your thoughts after reading. Mistake 3. Fear of mistakes and output. Many learners avoid speaking or writing because they're scared of errors. This fear stalls progress, as output is essential for fluency. Mistakes are normal, even native speakers make them. Fix it. Embrace mistakes as learning opportunities. Each error teaches you something new. Practice with support. Find a language partner or tutor who encourages you. Record yourself. Listen to your speaking to spot areas for improvement. Write daily. Start with simple sentences to build confidence over time. Final thoughts on avoiding mistakes. Balance input and output. Stay engaged and don't fear errors. Practice all skills daily. Listen, read, speak, and write. Mistakes show you're learning. By avoiding these pitfalls, you'll become a confident English speaker faster. Wrapping up your path to fluency, we've covered a ton today, and I hope you now see how inputs and outputs work together to transform your English. Let's recap the key takeaways, encourage you to act, and share resources to keep you moving forward. Summary of key points. Inputs listening and reading, the foundation of learning. The more you absorb, the easier English feels. Mix passive and active input for best results. Outputs speaking and writing, the key to fluency. Regular practice builds confidence and active skills. Balance, both input and output are crucial. Too much of one without the other limits progress. Aim for 70% input, 30% output. Avoid mistakes. Don't over-rely on passive input. Focus only on one skill or fear mistakes. Stay active and embrace errors as growth. Asterisk take action. Knowledge is only powerful if you use it. Start small practice 10 to 15 minutes daily. Speak or write a little each day. Even if it's just describing your morning, choose fun topics too. Stay motivated. Consistency beats perfection every time. Resources for further learning. Podcasts, YouTube. Listen to English learning podcasts or channels with clear, simple content. Books, articles. Read beginner-friendly books, news sites, or blogs. In English, graded readers are great for starters. Flashcard apps. Use Anki or Quizlet to memorize vocabulary. Daily practice. Keep an English journal or record short voice notes daily. Next steps. If you loved this episode, subscribe to Master Your English for more tips. Like and share this episode with other learners. Drop a comment below what's one thing you learned today. And how will you practice input and output this week? Challenge. Create a simple plan for this week. How will you balance input and output? Write it down and start today. Fluency isn't about perfection, it's about progress. Keep practicing, believe in yourself, and you'll get there step by step. Thank you for joining me, and I'll see you in the next episode.